Welcome back to a very special episode of the Earth Your Wow podcast. Today is the 30th episode. That's right, in just over 1 year we've managed to do 30 full episodes where we've spoken to sustainability experts, change makers and business leaders at the forefront of sustainability. It's been an incredible journey, and on this episode we've got two very special guests. It's us, Jack and Ellie. On today's episodes, we'll navigate why we started this podcast, what we've learned on this journey, what's happening behind the scenes at Reuseabox, and the future of the Earth Your Wow podcast. So welcome to the show, me and Ellie.
Hi Jack, how are you doing?
Not bad.
So for those listeners who don't already know, do you want to recap who we are, what we do, and why we decided to start a podcast?
Good place to start. So it's a funny one really, because we never intended to start a business. So just over 10 years ago, we kind of accidentally started this business when we discovered companies throwing away lots and lots of cardboard boxes because they didn't need them. And we discovered that we could collect these, and usually there was another business around the corner buying in the same boxes brand new. So we accidentally started a business reselling used cardboard boxes. But the interesting thing is, after a few years, we then realised that we didn't accidentally start a business. We accidentally started an environmental business. And for me, that kind of, I don't know what it's like from your perspective, but for me, that put me on this interesting journey of not just starting a business and trying to work out and navigate how you do that, which is challenging in its own right, but also having to then take that business and think, okay, if we've got an environmental business, how do we actually make this a sustainable business? And that's really what led us really, from my perspective, into starting this podcast, because I found that the biggest problem that no one talks about when it comes to making your business more sustainable is actually how to make your business more sustainable. Because if you want to research or look stuff up, there's so much conflicting information. You go onto Google, electric cars are great and they're cheap, and then beneath that, electric cars are unreliable and expensive, and examples like that. The list goes on and on. It's really confusing working out how to make your business truly sustainable. And the interesting thing is that it's not just, I don't think Reuseabox is a freak example, because I believe that soon every business out there, even the ones that aren't environmental companies, but every business out there is going to have to become a more sustainable version of itself. So for me, from my perspective, I thought, I don't know a lot of these things, so I thought, let's try and get good guests on, have a podcast and learn. But also, I kind of feel like for those people that are maybe starting out in that journey that I was 10 years ago, I think it would be great for them to have a podcast where they can listen to experts, industry leaders, change makers that are talking about what really is sustainable, how to make your business more sustainable, and also hearing their examples. There's nothing quite like hearing a story of somebody that has done this already, and the pitfalls and the problems that they've had. So from my perspective, that's kind of how we ended up starting a business and why we ended up starting this podcast. But the interesting thing would be to hear what it was like for you, because, I'm sure you've got your own perspective on it, Ellie.
Yeah, to be fair, before we started this podcast, I felt like we didn't have much of a community of like-minded businesses and organisations, and we kind of started to do a few things in the community, but it was really hard to connect with people, and I was really starting to think that locally, at least, there weren't any really purpose-driven businesses out there. But since doing this, we've connected with amazing people. So I think that's been the best thing, actually, growing a community.
It's interesting you say that, because I would agree. I remember when 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, it felt like all of the local businesses around were a bit lame. Not to be rude to them, but it felt like a lot of them, they didn't care about, their environmental impact. They didn't have a purpose. And the more we started digging, the more I think I've started to realise that actually they do. Actually, I think most people out there genuinely do think it's important to reduce their environmental impact or to have a positive impact on society or people or planet. They just don't know how. And our society hasn't built businesses to do that. That there's a reason why most businesses out there aren't purpose driven. And that's because that's not how we've built our businesses. That's not how it's always been done. But it's interesting you bring up purpose, because I do actually think that's a really important part of tackling climate change, is by linking it to purpose.
Yeah, I think it's just been great listening to all the stories, hasn't it? And finding out how people are making a difference in all those different ways. One thing I've learned about is just the huge variety of purpose-driven businesses out there, and they're really successful businesses. It's not like just some kind of nice to have. It's also good for business. You take Bird and Blend, for instance. They're an independent tea company, and they actually chose not to sell in the supermarkets, but they've still managed to create a thriving B2C brand with a team of over 200 that sells to customers all over the world. And that's just because they stayed true to their purpose, and they didn't just follow the crowd and, potentially follow the money. They did what they thought was best.
Yeah, is actually quite fascinating, because I remember Chrissy saying that I think you mentioned it, they consciously decided they didn't want to sell their products in the supermarkets, and they would open tea stores.
Yeah.
And there's one in Lincoln, there's one in most towns now. They've done very well, right? But on the face of it, that is probably not a very good business model, because I'm sure having your own store is more expensive. You're going to get less traffic in the store. So on the face of it, deciding to consciously do that is a bad business plan. But I think when it comes to purpose, I think there's like a little bit of magic that turns that kind of 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing into a business. It makes you more productive. Definitely consumers, I think, and customers will resonate more. I mean, we sell boring old cardboard boxes, right? As an example. And before we came along, there was no purpose-driven company in the cardboard box industry. I would argue maybe there wasn't really an environmental company in the cardboard box industry, certainly in the UK. And on the face of it, it feels like, how could you link purpose to cardboard boxes? It's a consumable product. It's a necessary evil for a lot of customers. No one wakes up one morning and thinks, oh, I know, I think I'm going to buy some. I've got my eye on a new box I want to buy. It doesn't work like that. It's something they don't want to buy, but they have to buy them. But we've proven ourselves that if you can actually link what you do to a purpose, then you can rally people around a cause. You can have fun doing it, and you can connect and engage with employees.
Another thing I've learned, which I found was really interesting, was like individuals and perhaps small communities have so much more power than we realize. And that's so important to take advantage of when it comes to taking action on the climate crisis. So, for example, there is power in where we choose to spend our money, who we bank with, the kind of car we drive, the food we eat. I think Andy Hawkins talked about it in the podcast with him that we did. He called it using our collective voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really kind of inspiring thing, because it's so easy to think, oh, I'm not really going to bother. What difference can I make? I'm just one person. Why should I bother recycling, or why should I bother doing this? But Andy, really passionately spoke about the collective action we can have when we all join together and decide to do things, for the greater good, I guess. And I think Robert Toast Brewing also referenced joyful activism as well, which was a really lovely thing. They give their employees paid leave to attend protests, which I thought was pretty cool.
Also, I think in our example, like we're right now we're sat in a porta cabin in a field in the middle of nowhere in Lincolnshire, and when we started, we felt like there is no like-minded businesses around. But the more we dug, the more we found there's loads of businesses in this village, in Newark and in Lincoln, and we're doing like networking events, and we're speaking to people, and we're working with people, we're working together, and like magical little things are happening. And I guess one key takeaway for anyone that's listening that has a business or works in a business is not to think that purpose is fluff. Not to think that this is bullshit and a waste of time and money, because it really does help build a stronger company. It helps engage with customers better, as well as giving you your own sense of purpose with your life. But also, I think it's really important that when it comes to like environmental, trying to make your business a more sustainable version of what it is, if you can link purpose back to it, you're going to get people to actually take action on stuff. It's like, if you, just a really silly example, but if you're trying to, I don't know, let's say you've got an office and you're trying to make sure people turn their computer off, as a random example, which is an issue you had, right?
Yeah.
It's not enough just to say to people, turn your computer off when you go home.
I don't know what you mean. I've never said that.
So there's one example of someone that we had in our office like that. Not naming any names, right. Steve. But the thing is, no. But jokes aside,
carry on.
The thing is, and the principle applies with customers, with suppliers. It's not just about with your own team internally, but it's not enough just to say to people, turn it off. If you can get people to understand why they need to turn the computer off, then it's engaging and it can become an energizing thing within the company. It can create a sense of purpose. Just because we're a cardboard box company doesn't mean we can't be a purpose-driven one and have a great time doing it and having a positive impact.
Yeah. So for us, that would be, obviously, we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint. We're trying to reduce our energy use by so much % each year, and that's why we need to make sure we turn electrical appliances off and things like that.
And I think importantly, going back to my point earlier, every business out there, doesn't matter who you are, if you're a really big developed multinational corporation or you're a small business, someone running a small shop or something in a village, in the future you are going to have to redesign that business to be an environmentally sustainable version of what it currently is. Governments will bring in legislation eventually, and I think it's important that people don't get too hung up on the how and they focus a bit more on the why, because I think when you can use a bit of purpose to direct that, you'll find it's a lot easier to do that. Because going back to my original point, was it's really hard running a business. You're really busy. You don't have time to think, how do I redesign this business? But you do need to do that if you want to survive and if you want to grow in the future.
What were some of your favourite episodes from the podcast around, that gave examples of this purpose?
Well, one of the nicest stories that I had, that we had, I thought, was Brew Gooder. So Alan at Brew Gooder. So I think his story was something like he went travelling. Was it India or something? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Southeast Asia. He went travelling anyway when he left university, and I think he was like volunteering somewhere, probably in a jungle or something, and he picked up a parasite, and he came back to the UK. He was really ill with it, but luckily he was given.
How did he pick it up?
With some dirty water, effectively, and he came back to UK. Luckily, he went to his doctors and he got some medication on the NHS, and it was cleared up within a couple of weeks or something. But when he started looking into it, he realised that in that country where he'd been travelling, they don't have clean water. They don't have like a national health service. They don't have access to that medication that he had. And if he was not from Ireland, but if he was from that country and he'd grown up there and he got that parasite, he might have died. And he thought, you know what? I think that this is a really big problem in the world, and I think that I would like to try and have a role in trying to fix that problem. So he decided, with that problem, and I guess, he must like beer. So he decided to set up a company where it's called Brew Gooder, and for every beer that you drink, you're funding fixing this problem. And he's raising awareness with the product, and he's also making sure that he is trying to fix that problem, of dirty water. And it's really, to us, it seems like a a ludicrous problem that people in 2024 don't have access to clean water. We take it for granted so much in this country. But listening to him, you can see the passion in what he's doing, and you can see the results that he's having, and he's growing a great company. He's in a lot of the major supermarkets, for example. And I think if you were just to start a beer brand and it was just about having another beer on the market, I think he would be struggling a lot because it's a saturated market. And I think for him, the purpose has helped him grow that company.
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of people out there that are listening, and they won't work for a company that has a story like that. They just work for a company. Maybe they manufacture boilers or something, right? And it's like, I don't know what the purpose of our company is, but the point is, no matter who you are, whether you're the CEO or you're working in that company, try and speak to the other people in your team and try and create some purpose around something. Certainly if you're trying to work on sustainability or reduce the impact of that company, I think purpose is actually a better place to start. I think start with the why, not the how, would be my learning, I guess, from the podcast. What were your kind of favourite learnings or any key takeaways?
I thought it was really interesting what we learned from, I think it was an episode with Adam Baystock at Small 99, just how many small businesses there are in the UK.
Yeah. I've got some stats.
Do you have any stats?
I have prepared some stats.
Okay.
Professional journalist now, podcaster.
Wow. Go on then.
So, and this is crazy, right? So 99.9% of the business population in the UK are small businesses. So that's just over 5.5 million of our businesses.
I think they're SMEs, aren't they?
Classed as SMEs, yeah.
But that's insane, isn't it? So really, Adam is saying in his podcast that the key to addressing climate change lies with small business leaders out there. So, don't think if you're a small business owner, don't think, there's only a few of us in our team. We don't need to be thinking about this. Again, it's that collective action. We all need to be thinking about this. We all need to be thinking about getting to net zero, how we can change our workspaces and change our work vehicles and do every little thing to change the way that we're working.
Yeah, exactly. You're not one small business in a sea of businesses. You are part of the small business population. You are 99.9% of the business population. The other stats I had were, 52% of GDP, so more GDP is coming from small businesses, small and medium businesses than big businesses. That's £2.3 trillion a year to the UK economy. And 60% of us, like you and me included, probably a lot of the people listening to this podcast, so 60% of us work for a small business, not a big business. That's 16.4 million people in the UK. And I think the thing I touched on Adam's episode, and it's a really great episode if people want to go back and listen to this, but I think one of his points is like, we're so used to hearing about big businesses when it comes to tackling climate change. We're so used to hearing about governments talking about legislation around trying to, put pressure on big businesses to reduce, their use of fossil fuels, for example. And we're so used to hearing like government funding and stuff with big businesses, and obviously that's great. We're not saying that. I think Adam's not saying that the government shouldn't be doing that or we shouldn't be talking about big businesses. But at the end of the day, we're forgetting about small businesses. So 99.9% of the companies out there, there isn't really much support. And that kind of reminds me actually of our story of trying to build this cardboard box company into an environmental company and finding we have no idea how to do it. There's very little support out there. There's very little advice out there, and we're not getting any help from the government. So I guess his kind of philosophy at Small 99 is that tackling climate change and reaching net zero should start on small businesses. And Small 99 is like a really easy, simple, cheap, might even be free, I'm not sure, but it's a simple online platform that any small business can sign up to, and it gives people really great advice and actionable steps on how they can reduce their impact. And in fact, a really great quote, which I think I stole from Adam, I'm not sure, but I think it came from him, and he said something like, often what he finds speaking to small businesses is the most carbon-heavy businesses are just the most inefficient businesses. And he says that a lot of the companies that work with them, they come to Small 99 because they want to reduce their impact, and they get a simple action plan. They do that, but a lot of them will find they're building more productive businesses. They're actually making more margin.
That's the thing. It's so often it makes business sense to reduce your impact.
A lot of the
What's
time,
better for the environment is also better for business.
Well, a lot, yeah. I mean, linking back to, one of our favourite guests I know on the this season has been Rob at Toast Brewing, for example, and just some of the stats, like 1/3 of all food and drink manufactured globally is wasted every year. Billions of loaves of bread in the UK are just made and just completely wasted. And I think it's that point of wanting to reduce your impact, but also separating it from revenue or profit. Like, I think there is a big misconception out there that businesses, if you want to reduce your impact, it's going to be a big cost, a big expense, and a lot of managers or leaders in companies, might be rolling their eyes and thinking, "Oh God, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for solar panels? How are we going to pay for electric vehicles?" But I think if you go to someone like Small 99, if you start looking, you'll find there are simple, easy, actionable things you can do to reduce your impact and build a more productive, more profitable business at the same time. And that's what we found, to be fair. That's what we found at Reuseabox. So the really nice thing about Adam as well is obviously he founded People Planet Pint.
Yes.
And People Planet Pastry. And of course, that's now become a global movement. I saw they were doing stuff in America.
I know, crazy.
And and the point is as well, that goes back to that community thing.
Yeah. So for anyone not listening, so these are basically informal events, the People Planet Pint events, where you can just meet up in a pub with other like-minded individuals to talk about the climate crisis. We actually host them ourselves, don't we?
In Lincoln, yeah.
In Lincoln. And we've recently started doing some pastry events, which are a little bit more formal in the afternoon. And yeah, again, another great chance to do a bit of informal networking. I think they're great for people like me that hate networking because it's not like super formal. It's literally just, go in, grab a drink, have a chat, leave whenever you want.
And I think the thing I noticed from that, so obviously we had Adam on the podcast, really interesting episode, learned a lot of stuff, and then we decided let's host the local People Planet Pint. And often with networking things as a small business owner, I'm really busy, I don't have time to do my normal job. Often I kind of think, networking, what a waste of time. That's what I think. I imagine a lot of people listening probably think the same thing. But if I could give one piece of good, actionable advice to people listening here who are working in companies or who are running companies and they want to reduce their impact, their environmental impact, my one piece of advice would be go to your local People Planet Pint. If you don't have one, then host it. You can reach out to Small 99 because it's free. So big tick on the kind of, business owners kind of worry list there is, cost, right? So it's free, doesn't cost anything. You get a free pint.
Yeah, so they have a sponsor, Crystal, that sponsors the first 30 pints, I think. Or is it 33? Something like that.
So depending on how many people go, you'll get somewhere between 1 and 33 free pints. Yeah. And but the point is, going and having a space to talk to other local people in your community. And it's a no agenda meetup, right? But we've had some great conversations around, environmental issues, just speaking to other business owners to hear what they're doing, hear their problems, and to kind of work together on stuff. I found it a really great opportunity to start injecting a bit of purpose, to start reducing your impact as a business. So I would focus on things like that, low-hanging fruit, easy wins, things that can rally people around a cause and a purpose. I would argue that that's probably more important than thinking about big, grand, expensive investments, like electric vehicles or solar panels.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with those, but it's focusing. I think it's focusing too much on the how, not the why. Like I said, I think you start with the why, everything else flows from there.
So, what's been happening behind the scenes at Reuseabox, Jack?
Good question. Well, you've been on maternity leave.
I have.
Which I guess is why you're asking this question. You know. I'm joking. So doing this podcast for the last year and a bit has been a great education for me, and I'm sure it has for you. I've learned some really great things, met some really great people out there, and to be honest, we've just been pinching bits and then trying to implement them in our business. So we became a B Corp. We hosted the People Planet Pint, and we've been working really hard on trying to. So with our business model, we've been working really hard on trying to reinvent and simplify what we're doing, and basically our vision at the moment is: can we turn Reuseabox into a better way for people and companies to buy and use cardboard boxes? And the kind of a good quote from Toast Brewing from their founder was, if you want to change the world, you have to throw a better party than those that are destroying it. I think that was Tristan, who was one of the co-founders. But I think that really encapsulates why we're doing that, because I think there is a big new economy that is being created at the moment around sustainability and around impact. All of the cars out there are becoming electric cars. New opportunity, for example, and I think this is a time when small businesses or startups can really shape their own destiny and create a great future, because you can take on big companies and you can change industries, and we're seeing it happen, and we're meeting with guests that are actually doing it. So for us, it's all about creating a better way for people to buy and use cardboard boxes. We've got a vision for, can we get 1 million companies choosing to ship in reused boxes every day? And language is always important in business, right? So as in sustainability. And I think choosing is the operative word. With us, we're thinking, can we turn, and part of this podcast is part of that, right? But can we turn Reuseabox into a community where businesses can work together to keep cardboard boxes in use for longer? And by doing that, we'll save money, and we will obviously reduce environmental impact on a massive scale. So that's the main thing. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention as well is obviously throughout the course of this podcast as well, and this was one of your initiatives, Ellie, actually, but we started, we decided that it's good that if we reuse boxes, it has a positive impact on the environment. But as part of that process, we started looking into the environmental impact of the cardboard box industry. And we were really shocked at how much of an impact it has. And so what we decided to do is we decided that every box reused will also fund climate action. So effectively, every time a box is reused, we're funding things like reforestation. We're trying to get 1 million trees planted of protected forests. And different environmental or social projects that effectively try and clean up the damage done by the packaging companies that came before us.
And I think we've planted nearly 300,000 now?
Apparently, yeah.
So we're well on our way to 1 million trees, which is super exciting. So should we talk about what's next for Earth Your While?
Oh, yes, that was it. Earth Your While.
So I feel like we've just begun to kind of scratch the surface about the kind of misconceptions around sustainability and what businesses need to do. I think we've had some amazing guests on so far. Who would be your dream guests for next season?
Dream guest?
Yeah.
All right. I think for me, I think it would be really nice to hear from and to learn more from Dale Vince at Ecotricity.
Yeah, he's cool, isn't he?
a real rebel, I would say, but someone that's really is at the forefront of sustainable energy. And we know we've got a big energy problem in this country, and we know it's a really big part of fixing climate change, really fixing our energy supply. So I would love to try and get him on. I'm sure he's not listening, but
you never know.
Love to try and get him on. And who would be your dream guest? Actually?
Well, I've recently had a baby, as we mentioned. So one thing that you realise when you have a baby is you get a lot more climate anxiety. Well, I've had a lot more climate anxiety. Having a baby is terrible for the environment, I think. So just because you have to buy so much stuff, and there's a lot of single-use stuff involved. Well, there can be anyway. So I would love to see if there is anyone out there who perhaps has founded like a sustainable baby brand or some kind of circular model where I've seen some like circular clothing models for babies, or I don't know.
I sent you one.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
are they called Baboodle?
That's not just clothing. That's all sorts of things.
Is it Baboodle? Is that? Am I forgetting the name?
That's like where you can rent, say, a pram or something, or
they might be called Baboodle.
I think so, something like that. But
Rachel's going to look them up. But sorry, I'm interrupting. Carry on.
But yeah, I just think it'd be great for someone.
Oh, they are.
We've
called,
fact checked.
Sorry, fact check. So they're called Baboodle, and I believe their premise is when people buy stuff for babies, they tend to buy lots of stuff, and then a few months later, baby's growing out. You don't need it
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sits in your attic or your garage, gets dusty or gets thrown away.
Yeah.
And I don't have any stats.
I don't think I want to know, but yeah, it's terrible for the environment. So
their idea is you can hire stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So you basically rent it for so long until the baby doesn't need it anymore. So yeah, I think it would be amazing to talk to people like that who are helping people to reduce their impact in that way.
Another dream guest for me. There's a guy called Harold. I think it's Friedel.
Right. That's
what I'm going to say. But he did a TED talk. I think it might have been a TEDx talk that was really good about the circular economy. So he's like a circular economist, and I think this podcast now, I think we're making quite good content. It'd be really interesting to speak to people really at the forefront of tackling climate change. People that really can give good, solid, sound advice, and people that have really good stories about how they've created businesses that have done it. Because at the end of the day, it is businesses that are going to fix this problem and benefit from it. So he would be a dream guest of mine, and I do really hope that. I really intend for us to go a lot deeper, because like you were saying earlier, I think we've only scratched the surface on this. There are so many, if you can think about it, everything out there, every business, every product, every service, effectively we have to think how we're going to redesign these to be more circular, lower waste and lower impact ultimately. So we could go on forever, but yeah, Dale, Vince and Harold, I'm going to say Friedel for me.
Interesting. Well, if they're listening, get in touch.
Slip in the DMs.
So, what's the question we always like to ask at the end of every podcast?
Yes. So, Ellie, where do you see the world in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should actually change this question, because I think we've come to realise that 10 years isn't really that long, is it?
No.
When we think when did we start Reuseabox? It was
somewhere around 10,
a bit over 10 years ago, but it doesn't even feel like it was that long ago now, does it? And although we've achieved a lot in that time, it does take time to do things. So I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if we should make it 50 years, but but I'm hoping that in 10 years, the majority of businesses are purpose-led, and I'm seeing it's making me really hopeful that the people that we're talking to and the businesses that we're talking to, because I'm seeing so many great ideas out there. So I'm hoping that we're all working collectively to help solve the big problems that society faces. I hope we've made some big steps big steps forward in areas that are going to help us get to net zero. So that's things like more electric cars on the road, less diesel and petrol, more green energy, less reliance on fossil fuels. I'm also hoping that we've managed to rewild a lot more of the UK because I think it's pretty nature depleted at the moment.
Yeah. Quite similar to you. I mean,
what about you then?
Well, it's interesting because I have been doing this for around about a decade, depending on where we're starting from, with Reuseabox. And you're right, 10 years goes by very quickly. And in a lot of ways, we've not made much progress in the last 10 years in the UK or globally. But I have seen, having said that, I have seen a complete change in business since I started. I can remember going to businesses, speaking to small businesses, going to meet big businesses about trying to get them to reuse cardboard boxes, and talking about the environment or climate change, and reuse was kind of, I don't want to say I was laughed at, but I don't think we're treated very seriously. And I was always looking at an old, middle-aged, white-haired man, or a bald man, and nothing wrong with that. But slowly, over the last decade, as we have sort of learnt about climate change and started trying to build an environmentally sustainable business, and we've sort of gone down that purpose-driven path, we're seeing more and more people pop up. Startups, people locally. We're seeing more and more businesses pop up that are purpose-driven, that are doing really great things to reduce impact. People, like a lot of the guests, like Phil Refill, like Adam at Small 99, like Rob at Toast Brewing. We're seeing companies out there that are having an impact, and they are changing the way business is done. And I really am very optimistic and excited to see where we're going to take that. I think it's a great time of change and opportunity. And it's great to see people enjoying it and really having fun with that as well. And also, one thing that I think we're starting to see as well is there's this very big gap between the products and services we consume as humans on a day-to-day basis and the natural world that they come from. And I think we are starting to see companies and products or companies who are using their products and services to actually try and raise awareness and try and educate consumers and try and say, here's our product, here's the impact on the environment, here's the world it's come from, and here's how we are supporting that. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see as well. I
think the hope is that if we can help people to value our natural resources more, they will help to protect it. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to the next 10 years. And it'll be very interesting. I've got this vision of listening back to like all of our guests, kind of where do you see the world in 10 years? In 10 years.
See who was right.
Maybe we could have a reunion show. We could maybe we could all drive to this sustainable venue in our electric cars. Thank you for listening to the Earth Your Wow podcast, episode 30. Over and out.
Yeah. Nice to talk to you, Jack.
Nice to talk to you again. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly Earth Your While. For more information, visit reuseabox.co.uk/Earth Your While.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Earth Your While, please email media@reuseabox.co.uk.